So hi, this is Tom Stone. I'd like to welcome everyone to this session with Joan Schramm. Did I get it right?
Right.
And this is a demonstration session for transforming grief into joy. And Joan has kindly volunteered to participate in this session. Her husband passed away last fall. I think it was September or August or
August.
September. August,
August.
yeah. And she's been kind of struggling with her grieving process. And so the purpose of our session today is to see if we can change that and help her to recover from the pain of her loss. And so that's what we're going to do today. So, Joan, welcome, and thank you so much for volunteering.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, I'm going to give a little bit of an orientation so that this is the first time of doing this kind of work for Joan. And I believe that's right, yeah? And yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so, both for her sake and also for anyone who is watching the recording of this session, I want to give a little orientation so you have an understanding of what's going to happen, what we're going to do. So, the origin of having a problem with being able to recover from the pain of loss, whether it be grief or heartbreak or any other kind of deep traumatic emotional pain, the problem originates when we're very little, when we're actually pre-verbal, like before we learn how to talk. And the reason it happens is that we get emotionally overwhelmed many, many times when we're very little. And I don't know anybody who likes it. In fact, we hate it. We hate it so much that we immediately learn to start to suppress our painful emotions because we don't want to feel them. We hate this experience of being emotionally overwhelmed. What that does is it causes us to develop a deep habit long before we even learn how to talk. We develop the habit of suppressing our emotions, suppressing and avoiding our emotions. So for pretty much everybody, the basic way that people mainly deal with their emotions is they either suppress them very quickly, in fact, so quickly they don't even realize they're doing it, or if they can't suppress it, if it's just too much, too intense, then what happens is you get overwhelmed by it and you cry. And I would suspect that you've probably cried many times over the loss of your husband.
Yes.
And, yeah, and this is very common, of course. Now, what you've noticed is that no matter how many times you've cried, the crying doesn't resolve the pain of the grief completely. You might feel a little bit better after you cry, but in general, it comes back, you still feel the pain, and you cry again, right?
Right.
Yeah, and so crying is not the answer. And suppression of the painful emotion is not the answer either, because when you suppress it, what happens is you simply store it in your body. And you may already have the experience, it's common with things like grief and heartbreak and things like that, that when you just think about the person, you think about the losing of them, that you can feel some kind of constriction or tightness or pain in your body someplace. So very often heart area, is very common. Is that so for you? You can typically,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, so that painful experience is the unresolved, incomplete experience from the trauma of facing the whole situation with the passing away of your husband. And so the reason why it doesn't get resolved is because of this deep childhood conditioning of avoiding it, suppressing it, not wanting to feel it. Right? So what we're going to do, and what I discovered, as I think you've read in some of my posts on Facebook or on the webpage, the way I discovered this is I had to deal with trauma myself after getting shot in the chest by a deranged stranger back in 1993. This guy just came to my door, pulled out a 44 caliber handgun and shot me in the chest. Now, it's a complete miracle that it didn't kill me, because 44 is a big gun. Hunters use it for killing bears. I mean, the bullet's like, that big. And it hit me right in the chest, right next to my right nipple here. And somehow, amazingly, it didn't kill me. It ricocheted off the lower edge of a rib, went down, went through the diaphragm, right between the two lobes of the liver, hit the pelvic bone, and then ricocheted and lodged back behind my fifth lumbar. If it had gone through me, the doctor said I probably would have died of, I would have bled to death. And when it went through the liver, it went right between the two lobes of the liver. They also told me if it had gone through the liver proper, I would have probably died of internal bleeding. So it was just miraculous that it didn't kill me. I didn't lose any organs or limbs or anything like that. But the biggest part of the healing for me was healing from the trauma. As you can imagine, it was a huge, just out of the blue, total shock. It was the trauma that was the biggest problem. I had a couple of surgeries. There was some physical healing, but the trauma was lingering on for quite a while. I was having all the post-traumatic stress symptoms, nightmares, flashbacks, startle response, everything. And I didn't believe that this was incurable. Like the psychological community basically feels that PTSD is incurable, also feels that grief takes a long time to heal from. I'm sure you've heard that or seen that. Those are the general experience of people. And this is all due to the kind of emotional incompetence that everybody has from this deep childhood conditioning of emotional suppression and avoidance. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, it just seems to be how it, that's actually how it is, right? Now, it's not innately the case that we can't resolve trauma. We have an enormous capacity to feel things as an adult. We've grown up, we have an enormous capacity to feel things, but it's completely underutilized because of this deep conditioning. We don't do it. We have no practice at it. We have the practice of avoidance. So, what you're going to learn today is how to do the exact opposite of what you've been doing all your life, which is what I discovered that allowed me to completely cure my PTSD. When I discovered this, I did it and I cured myself. I haven't had any PTSD symptoms since. No nightmares, no flashbacks, no startle response, nothing. All gone, which was, that's like unheard of. People just don't do that.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to show you how to do, is exactly what I learned how to do in order to heal myself. That's what I'm going to share with you today.
Okay.
So because it's the opposite of what we're used to doing, it takes a little bit of guidance, a little bit of, understanding of what to do. And there's basically two main techniques that are used in this work, which I now call inner greatness optimizing. And typically for things like grief or other traumatic experiences, we mainly use one technique, and it's called the in technique. And what you do with the in technique is you go in to the energy. So it's a good name. I used to call it something else, but it was a little too complicated. And I found when I came to China, where I'm talking to you from now, that we needed to simplify things with the naming. So we just call it the in technique. It's easy to translate into many languages. So the way the in technique works, I'm going to explain it to you, and then we're going to get started fairly quickly here.
Okay.
In starting to resolve this painful feeling you've been carrying around, holding in your body since last August. So the way the in technique works is you, first of all, allow yourself to feel the energy field of the emotion in your body. Now, the 3-year-old in you doesn't like this idea, but we're going to do it anyway. Just kind of comfort the 3-year-old, say, okay, no problem. It's, it's safe and it's going to be okay. So when you allow yourself to feel the energy is a field of energy. It's not just a point. It's like a field. And in that field, there's an area toward right in the center where the energy feels the strongest. It's the most intense. It's kind of like the fountainhead or the origin of the energy. And what you're going to do, I'll guide you through every step of this. What you're going to do is you're going to allow yourself to feel the central, strongest part of the energy. Now, this is the part that's the opposite of what you've been doing, right? because
Yeah.
we've been avoiding it. But what you're going to experience as soon as you try it is, doesn't kill you to do this. It's just a sensation. You know. Now, one of the other really important concepts that's just of value to understand and know, because it's, again, the opposite of what pretty much everybody does, is that in every situation in life, every situation where we have a problem, we have two basic things. We have the circumstances, which is just what's happened, and then we have our reaction to the circumstances. Now, for most people, the reaction and the circumstances are so kind of intertwined, so enmeshed, that it's hard for them to get them apart. And the vast majority of help that people seek and try to get for resolving grief and similar kinds of problems is cognitive, like cognitive therapy, right? Which is trying to
Right.
understand it. And the problem with understanding is that the understanding doesn't, even when you understand it and you understand why and all this stuff, it doesn't resolve the problem. It's like if you
Right.
have a virus on your computer, okay? You can understand everything about the virus, what it's called, how it's corrupting your files, how many files it's corrupted, all this kind of stuff. That doesn't get it off your computer. You have to run the appropriate antivirus software, which is actually a way of erasing or neutralizing the energy, the patterns of zeros and ones. It actually wipes out the energy that is the virus. Okay? So we're basically, the development of these techniques, called the pure awareness techniques, this is essentially like antivirus software for human beings. So we're gonna neutralize the energy that's causing the reaction. Okay? So this is the way we're going to separate the circumstances from the reaction, and we're going to use the technique of resolving the energy to just neutralize the reaction so that it's gone.
Okay.
So when we start, what's going to happen is you're going to feel it. You'll have a tendency to want to avoid it. You also can have a tendency to cry. Okay? Now, if you feel like crying, there's nothing wrong with crying. It's completely okay. But crying is not an efficient way to complete the incomplete experience of the energy that you're holding in your body. Okay. So if you feel like you're going to cry, and I'll be able to see it on your face, if it feels like it's no problem, what I'm going to do is I'm going to firmly guide you to do something a little different. And that is, instead of collapsing into the painful energy and having it just sort of engulf you and overwhelm you, instead of that, we're going to get focused right into the center of the strongest part of the energy. Now that does something very interesting. What it does is it kind of allows you to sort of separate yourself a little bit from it, so you're observing it from a little bit of a distance. And the moment you do that, you don't feel like crying anymore. It's amazing. I've done this hundreds of times. It always works. Okay? So if you feel like crying, it's not that crying is bad. It's completely okay. But it's not efficient. It's not the way we're going to get the problem resolved. So that's why I'm going to guide you into this, noticing the central strongest part. And I may have to remind you a number of times to do that, because we're deeply conditioned to not do that and just get overwhelmed and cry. Okay?
Right.
All right. Good. So this is an important aspect of this. So as you start to feel the central strongest part of the energy, at first, this is going to make it seem stronger than normal because you're allowing yourself to feel something you've been avoiding. And as you feel it, that level of intensity may seem to stay more or less the same for a little while. Could be, I don't know, a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, doesn't matter, however long. But gradually, what's going to happen is, just by paying attention, just by allowing yourself to feel and notice the central strongest part of the energy, the experience of the energy starts to get completed. And what happens is it gets a little softer. Now, as it gets softer, this allows us to then be able to get even a little closer to it. Now, when you get closer to it the first time, it's kind of like clicking in for a closer view on Google Maps. It kind of magnifies it. And so when you get closer, it's going to feel stronger again. Now, it's not stronger, it's actually weaker, but it seems stronger because you're just getting closer, right?
Right.
So,
okay.
yeah, so when that happens, that's actually a good thing. What we want to do is we want to keep the distance that you are from the energy at an optimal level. When you first start, if it's too much and associated with like the crying, we'll back up a little bit. It's like getting a hot air balloon and going up, okay? We want to back up so we get the distance just right where you can really feel the central, strongest part of the energy, but it's not overwhelming, okay? That's what's the perfect distance, okay? So I'll help you with that, and we'll get it just right. Now, as you hold it right in that place, and you may even have to adjust it, several times to get it right. That's okay. It's easy to do. We're not used to doing it. Okay. So as you get it right, it'll start to fade, and then we'll get a little closer to it, a little bit closer to it. That'll make it seem stronger. You just hang in there for a while. It'll start to fade a little more. Then you get a little closer again. And we just go nice and slow, easy. Okay? And as we do that, each time you get closer, you're completing a little bit more of the incomplete experience that when it happened, it was just too much to process in the moment. Right? It was just too much.
Okay.
Especially with the conditioning of wanting to avoid it. Okay.
Right.
So as we do that more and more and more and more and more, we just keep doing that. Gradually, we'll get to the place where the energy is almost gone. And right toward the end, when the energy is almost completed, the experience will start to change. It'll feel like the energy will feel like it's kind of dissolving and dissipating. It'll be sort of like, the analogy would be sort of like clouds burning off in the morning sun, just kind of like evaporating.
Mm-hmm.
And this is great. And when it's all gone, you won't feel a sense that there's any energy left. There'll just be a kind of quietness there. And what will happen is you'll be in the state of just experiencing your awareness, which was kind of the background in which all this was happening. But now there's no energy to distract you or occupy your attention. The energy is just completely gone. Now, you may have more than one of these energies. And another part of our process is that I use something called intuition testing or muscle testing. And this is it's a very interesting way to be able to access the experiential wisdom of your body. Now, we tend to be very mental. Most people tend to be very mental. Okay? We try to sort things out with our mind, understand things, everything. It's like the most common addiction in the world is the addiction for our thinking, right? But the problem is that thinking as I mentioned, doesn't resolve the energy. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the energy, and when the energy is completely resolved, then we'll do something which is called this intuition testing or muscle testing. And the way it works is the body responds to experiences. The body experiences things through our senses. We have 5 senses. And so when we want to get the information about what's happening for you in this type of process, we're interested in what's happening in the body, not what's happening in the mind. So we can't get access to that by thinking about it. We have to use a special technique, which is called muscle testing. And the way that works is, if I were doing it with you in person, I'd have you hold your arm up and I'd press down on your arm. And when you'd hold it strong like that, that would be kind of like a yes answer. Right? That would mean there's a match between what's going on in your body and what you're saying. Okay? It's like a match. Okay? Now, because we're not in person, I'm going to test on your behalf. And I can do that with the smaller muscles of my fingers. The strong response is like this. It's similar to this. It's just smaller muscles, right? Like that. That's a strong response. The weak response is like that. And I'm going to hold my hand up so you can see what I'm doing.
Okay.
There's no woo-woo stuff here. I'm not like doing something, secretive or anything like that. I'm going to be very out front and open with you and explain everything that I'm doing, even while you're doing the techniques, which you'll be doing, by the way, with your eyes closed as much.
Okay.
even while you're doing that, I may say a few things, and I might muscle test whether it's time for me to say something, right? Because your body knows, and with your permission, I need your permission to muscle test on your behalf so I can do it remotely. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. All right, no problem. All right. So this is the basic orientation. There's another technique called the out technique, and we might need that as well. We'll just see. Okay, out technique,
Okay.
the out technique, the energies are very different. The energy radiates out from the body and sort of fills up the space around you. And these kinds of energies are what we call reactive emotions. They're basically two kinds of emotions when we look at the emotion from the perspective of the energy structure. Okay? The qualities of them may vary, but the structure, they're basically only two kinds. There's the in-technique energies, which are these traumatic, localized, painful ones. That's the one you're mainly feeling, okay? And the out-technique energies have this sort of cloud or aura-like structure where the energy radiates out from the body, fills up the space around you, and you're sort of encapsulated by it, like enveloped by it. And the problem is that you're inside of it, and you're seeing the world through it. So it's kind of like having dark glasses on. It sort of colors everything, you know. So if you're doubtful, then you're sort of doubtful about everything. If you're angry, then you feel angry about everything, you know. I mean, maybe somebody hurt your feelings or something, and you feel angry. Some friend comes up and says, "Oh, Joan, how are you doing?" You say, don't talk to me." You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we just kind of engulfed by the anger, and we just sort of see the world from an angry perspective. So whatever's going on, if there's anything like that associated with the grieving process, we'll find it, and I'll guide you through the out technique, and we'll resolve that too. Okay?
Okay.
Now, the traditional grieving process is seen as, depending on which books you read, as a 5-step or 7-step process, and it has this different sequence of things, of being shocked by it, and then, you know, going through these different stages of anger, disbelief, and, you know, and so forth. The wonderful thing about the way we approach it is we don't have to go through all those stages, because when the pain is gone, when the energy of the pain is gone, the need to go through all those other steps basically mostly goes away, okay? Which is terrific. Yeah. Now, I want to just also assure you that this is completely safe. I've never had any problem with anyone, you know, of not being able to do it and accomplish it. The success rate is extremely high, and I've helped lots of people with the grieving process, whether it's been recent grieving or 10 years, 22 years in one case. A woman had lost her baby and was grieving for 22 years, and within half hour, 45 minutes, was gone. It was just incredible. So, let's see, there's something else I need to tell Joan before we start. Yes, muscle testing the whole process, okay. Has to do with some other part about the techniques. Yes. Okay. It has to do with the in technique and actually completing it, not just leaving it as better. Yeah. As you do the in technique and the energy becomes less, you're going to start to feel better right in the middle of the process of doing the technique.
Okay.
Now, sometimes it happens that people start feeling better, but still have this lifelong conditioning of not wanting to feel the painful energy. Right? And so sometimes people say, "Oh, it's better. I'm ready to stop." And I just want to let you know it's not good to do that.
Okay.
What we want to do is make sure that we really complete the energy so it's totally gone. Right? And you'll be able to tell when it's really gone. It'll feel 100 times better than when it's almost gone. Okay.
Okay.
So just want to orient. Is something else we need to discuss before we start? No, we're ready to go. Okay. So now we're going to start, and I'm going to guide you through the process. It's easiest to do with your eyes closed. So if you want to close your eyes.
Okay.
And it's optimal to keep your eyes closed throughout the process, and I'll tell you when it's like okay to open them again. Okay? All right. So it's not going to take much for you to be able to feel the pain in your body. We already talked about that. All you have to do is just allow yourself to really think about it a little bit, and you can feel that pain probably in your heart area. And it's important that we notice the sensation of the pain in the body. Can you feel it?
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay. Now notice that, is it in that sort of chest, heart area?
Yeah, it's like right below my throat area. So
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the center. People refer to this as the heart chakra, is the way that's sometimes described, but it's the center of the chest just below the throat. Okay.
Mhm.
Now notice that there's a field of energy there, and I can see on your face already it's kind of painful. And I want you to allow yourself to feel it, but not to just sort of collapse into it and get absorbed in it. I want you to just observe it from a little bit of a distance. And the part I want you to observe is to notice that right in the center of the field of energy, there's an area where it's stronger than elsewhere. And if you allow yourself to, you can feel that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, we want to stay focused right into the center of the strongest part. Strangely enough, this is the safest place to be. Now, notice that it doesn't kill you to do this.
Right.
It's just a sensation. And by doing this, we're separating out the reaction from the circumstance. So if thoughts start to come about the circumstance, what I want you to do is refocus right into the same place, right into the center of the strongest part of the energy. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. So notice that by allowing yourself to feel it, you can adjust how close to it or how far away from it you are just by having the intention to do that. And I want you to kind of experiment with getting a little closer, a little further away, and see if you can get just the right distance, which will be where you can really feel it, but it's not overwhelming. Is that possible?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So now, if it starts to feel overwhelming, what I want you to do is just back up a little bit, go up, but stay focused on the central, strongest part of the energy. That's the key to staying safe and not collapsing into it, because it gives you a little bit of a sense of distance from it. So you're sort of more observing it rather than getting overwhelmed by it.
Right. Okay.
Excellent. Good. Joan is doing it just perfectly. Yeah, you're doing it just right. I'm muscle testing, by the way. You don't have to open your eyes to see. Okay. Now, after a while, the energy is going to start to soften a little bit, become less intense. When it does, I want you to let me know. And don't worry about the timing. There's no trying to make it go away. There's no trying to do anything to it. It's just this gentle, sort of innocent noticing of the strongest part of the energy. And just so you know, what you're doing by allowing yourself to do that is you're beginning the process of completing the experience that you couldn't complete when it happened because it was just too much. But now we're doing this in a special way that allows us to gradually complete it and stop avoiding doing that, stop continuing to suppress it, but allow ourselves to gradually complete the experience. So when it gets softer, let me know. And it's totally okay if it takes a while. That's just completely fine. There's no rush.
Okay. It feels like it's spreading out a bit.
Ah, okay, very good. Yeah, it'll have this feeling of changing like that. Okay, so now it's completely okay to get a little closer. Yeah, I'm muscle testing again for you. Yeah, so now just bring your awareness a little bit closer, just a little bit closer to the central, strongest part of the energy, not too close and not too fast. You'll start to get a sense of what's just right, where you can really feel it, but it's not overwhelming. And again, after a while, doesn't matter how long it takes, after a while, it'll soften a little more.
Okay, it's a little less intense.
Excellent. You're doing it exactly right, Joan. This is perfect. So now it's a little less intense. Again, we can get just a little closer. So adjust the distance. Get it just right so you can really feel it. And we're going to keep going through this, cycling through this. It's important to say this. Yeah, I'm just had the intuition that I should say this, and I'm testing that it's correct. This is not suppressing the emotion. This is the opposite. This is completing the experience rather than archiving it, storing it for later. Okay? This is completing it now. Okay? And that's exactly right. And that's why it's getting a little softer. Each time it gets softer, Joan, get a little bit closer to it.
As I get closer each time, it just literally feels like somebody jabbing me in the chest.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. It has a very constricted, tight, painful quality to it. But you'll notice that even though it's like that, it's still possible to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the 3-year-old in you doesn't like this idea very much, But the adult in you has the capacity to do this. And because I know from the experience of curing my own PTSD and also from helping thousands of people to do this, that you can learn to do it. And as you do it a little more, it becomes less strange, becomes less unfamiliar. And you start to actually acclimate to being able to be present to the intensity of the feeling, however sharp or intense it might be. And you can always back up a little bit. If it's too much, just back up a little bit and then it'll be less intense. Just testing it's appropriate for me to check in. So how's it going, Joan?
It, at first, the appearance or the vision that I got of it was like this huge vortex with stuff being sucked down the middle.
Yeah.
Um, And like I said, with that feeling like somebody's jabbing me in the chest with a stick,
Yeah.
it's now feeling less, and I'm getting just more of this, like not so much a vortex, but just like a lot of really dark clouds sort of there.
Sure.
And
Sure.
it's not, uh, the stick in my chest is not as hard.
Excellent. So we're making good progress. It's not even taking that long. This is great. So go ahead and adjust the distance again. Get it just right where you can really feel it, but it's not overwhelming. And again, just gently notice the central, strongest part of the dark, cloudy energy.
It's weird. I mean, I can actually feel my left shoulder tensing up and moving with this.
Uh, uh, yeah, it's quite common that we can store this traumatic, painful energy in different parts of our body. So the part that you're feeling in your shoulder, it might seem like the energy is kind of moving to there, but it's
Hmm.
probably not moving. It's probably like we kind of think of this as kind of like having a backup copy of the energy that you're storing in another area. And whichever area feels the strongest, whether it's your chest or whether it's your shoulder, just allow your attention to go there. Because the body's showing you that energy because it's basically needs your attention. In fact, that's the purpose of the pain, is to call your attention to the area that needs it. Because what's needed is the completion of the experience that's there, being held there. As I said before, that was just too much to process in the moment that it happened, or right after it happened. So you're allowing yourself to complete that, and it happens fairly commonly that, particularly when the intensity of the energy is really strong, like with grieving or with post-traumatic stress, like what I had, that there can be multiple places in the body where you store the energy, so it's not all concentrated in one place.
The the spot in my chest now, I mean, it feels like it's sucking energy out of my shoulder, and there's like this white hot X in the middle where they're crossing.
Okay, so right where that cross is, where it's white hot, put your attention right into the center of the hottest part of that. There's a central feeling where it's really hot. And again, adjust the distance so you get it just right, but focus right into the center of that. If that's the most intense part of the experience at the moment, that's where we want to put our attention. Joan's doing this correctly. Yes, good, very good. Appropriate to check in. Yeah. How's it going, Joan?
It feels like the energy coming from my shoulder is lessening. I mean, the whole thing feels lessened.
Less less
Yeah,
bad. Okay.
yeah.
Excellent. This is great. Making good progress. So where does the energy feel like it's the strongest now?
I would say midway between the middle of my chest and my shoulder.
Okay, so still in that area. So
Yeah.
that's great. Wherever it feels the strongest, kind of like collarbone area, sort of somewhere
Yeah.
there. Yeah. Yeah, so just allow your attention to go, allow it to be drawn to where the body wants you to pay attention, which is why that's the area, the strongest part of it, because that's where the body wants your attention. So go ahead and allow yourself to feel it, and just the feeling of it is just the sort of innocent noticing, but continuing to keep your attention, bringing your attention back to right to the center of the most intense, strongest part of the energy field. This is what works. And we're having good success already because it's lessening, and that's exactly what we want. We're going to stick with it and make it less and less and less until it's completely gone. And that'll just mean that you've completed the incomplete experience you've been holding there all these months.
Yeah, it's feeling less.
Excellent. Still have a sort of concentration in that collarbone area in
Yeah,
between the
uh-huh.
shoulders.
Yeah.
Okay. That's like the main place where you're storing this energy, apparently, at least at this stage. So just continue. You're doing it perfectly right, and we're getting good progress. It's getting less and less. So as it gets less, you can start to immediately get closer. You don't have to wait. As soon as it gets less, get closer. Make sure the focus is right into the center, and just keep going. You're doing great. I should mention, yeah. So as you get closer to the energy being completed, as I was mentioning in the orientation at the beginning, the energy will start to kind of dissipate. Sort of, the analogy is kind of like the fog burning off in the morning sun.
Mm-hmm.
And so when that starts to happen, that means you're very close to the end. And when it dissipates, it kind of dissolves and it just sort of moves away. And when it's all gone, you can tell it's just kind of quiet and there's no pain anymore. So when that happens, let me know. So you just keep going exactly as you're doing, and that will happen, and then the energy will be completed.
Well, it's really breaking up now.
Wonderful. This is exactly what I was just talking about. It'll have that sense of just sort of, yeah, breaking up or dissolving, and it'll just feel like it sort of drifts away from you. And when it drifts away completely and it's all gone, then let me know.
Feels like there's just a little piece.
Excellent. You're almost there. That's great. So someone has joined us for observing. That's completely
Oh.
fine. No problem. This actually Lori Laurie Hoagland is one of my long-term students, and a very good one.
Boy, it really feels loose and calmer.
A lot better, huh?
A lot better, yeah. It's funny how it moved,
Over to
from the middle of my chest all the way, over, really ended up, that last piece was just really like my shoulder joint.
yeah, okay, okay. So scan the whole area of your chest, the collarbone area that's in the middle, and the shoulder joint. Scan it all and see if it feels like there's any charge, any energy still left in any of those places.
Now, it's my shoulder aches, but I don't
Mm,
feel any energy or any charge like
yeah,
like
good,
there
good,
was.
good. This is also very common, and I know exactly what you're talking about. If you get a muscle cramp, and then
Yeah,
after the cramp goes away, there's still a kind of achiness there,
yeah,
even though
yeah,
it's very similar, because when the energy is in the body, it actually kind of distorts and contracts the fine tissues and fibers of the body. And when the energy is gone, it takes the body a little while to sort of unwind that constricted, tightness in the muscle. And this is what you're feeling. Okay.
yeah.
And you're absolutely right. I'm just going to test to double check it. This is what's happening with Joan. Yes. There's still some energy of the pain related to the grieving process present there. No. Okay. That means you got all of the in technique energy. That's complete. Excellent. Very, very good. Okay, let's open your eyes. Take a little break for a moment. Good job. Very good job.
Okay.
And yeah, now you're smiling. This is good. So you probably feel lighter, like you said, looser, easier. Yeah,
Yeah.
much more comfortable. Now, we're going to do something that's called a provocation test, because we want to make sure that we really got it all. Okay, we don't want to
Mm-hmm.
leave it. And the way to do that is very simple. You just think about the whole situation, your husband passing away. Just think about that and see if there's any remaining feeling of pain in the body. And it might feel a little odd at first to think about it and not feel the pain because you've been feeling it for so long. But we just take a little time to check it out. When the energy's gone, it's actually really gone. You won't be able to feel the pain. Anything there?
No, I don't think so.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Yeah.
What a relief, huh?
Uh-huh.
Okay, great. So all of the in technique energy associated with Joan's grief is completed. Yes. There's some more of it hiding somewhere inside that we need to go dig deeper and find. No. Excellent. This is really good. Really,
Okay.
really good. Okay, so now I was testing on your behalf just quietly
Mm-hmm.
while you're doing this that we do have two out technique energies that we need to resolve. And
Okay.
I was testing what are the reactive energies. One of them is anger. You have some anger about this
Mm-hmm.
happening. And the other one is fear. Mhm. And I suspect that your husband was a very comforting person to you, and that you
Mm-hmm.
kind of relied on him a lot. And now that you're by yourself, there's a little bit of fear of, oh my gosh, how am I going to get by, or what I'm going to do, stuff like that. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to first do the anger. Yeah, anger first. I'm going to help you resolve that with the out technique. I'll guide you through the whole process. Okay. And then we'll do the fear, because
Okay.
these are like aspects of the grieving process that's not the pain of the loss, but it's like associated emotions that are still there that we need to resolve. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you already feel a ton better. This will take you even a ton more better.
Okay.
Okay. So now I'll explain the out technique to you. It's very simple. And then I'll guide you through each of the steps. Okay. So the
Okay.
out is kind of the opposite of the in technique. Instead of going in, we actually go out. And the energy fields of the out technique energies are quite different. They're not so localized and tight and constricted like what you just did. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's more like the energy sort of radiates out from the body and fills up the space around you. And it creates a kind of cloud or aura of energy. And you're inside that cloud. And as I was mentioning before, you're sort of seeing the world through it. Okay? So it
Mm-hmm.
colors it, and it causes you to make decisions, take actions and stuff that are based on the reaction, the reactive energy, rather than on your true knowing, your true self. Okay?
Okay.
And so we don't want that. We don't want that. We want to have this be also finished. Now, the way you do the technique is you first have to allow yourself to feel the energy. And as I said, quite a different kind of experience. It's like this cloud or aura of energy. And if you think about how angry you felt that, you know, your husband got taken from you, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you think about you can probably, just by thinking about it, you can probably feel the anger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And notice that if you allow yourself to, you can sense that it has this quality of just being this sort of enveloping sort of cloud or aura of energy that feels like it's just sort of all around you. Can you sense that?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. 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 So the instruction now is very, very simple. Again, you'll do this with your eyes closed and keep them closed throughout the process. So the instruction is very simple. Now that you can feel this cloud of anger energy, we simply go see how big it is. And the way you do that is very simple. You just let your awareness move out through the energy cloud further and further, out into the space around you further and further. And what we're looking for is the place where the energy field sort of fades off into the surrounding quietness. Because this energy field is not, it's not not filling up the whole universe. Okay? It has a limit to it, and it's typically not like a sharp edge, like a bubble. It's more like kind of like the origin point is sort of like the sun, and then the energy is kind of like the rays of the sun. It just sort of radiates out, and there's a certain point where that just sort of fades off into the quietness.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looks
What it
like.
feels. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Great. So yeah, I've done tons of these, so I know what they look like. So we don't pay any attention to the quietness that's outside of the energy cloud or the rays of the thing, because there's nothing there. And normally we're more interested in experiencing things, and there's nothing there. It's just a kind of emptiness or quietness. But today we're interested in accessing and experiencing that quietness. So when you notice it, when you get out far enough that you notice the quietness, go all the way out so that you're actually in the quietness and no longer in the cloud of energy. And that's easy to do. You just notice the area of the quietness where there's no more radiance of that feeling.
So it's like I'm seeing the cloud of energy like over there.
Yeah, exactly. You're kind of
Okay.
outside of it. Okay. Now, you there?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in order to make the distinction between the energy cloud and the quietness even more clear, go a little bit deeper into the quietness, a little bit further away from the cloud of energy. That's easy to do. You just notice the area of the quietness that's a little further away.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes. Okay, good. And now we want to go really far away from the energy field, way far away, deep into the quietness.
Okay.
Now, take a few moments to allow yourself to notice that there are no limits to the vastness and expansiveness of the quietness. It's just limitless. It goes on forever. There's no boundary, no walls, nothing. You get a bit of a sense of that?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Notice how there's no anger out here.
Right. It's just quiet.
Yeah, there's nothing out here. It's just quiet, peaceful, actually a pretty nice place to hang out. Now, if you look back at the cloud of energy that you were inside of just a few moments ago, you're seeing it from quite far away now, from out in the expansiveness. This is the expansiveness of your awareness. It's actually limitless. And as you look back and you see the cloud of energy that you were inside of before, what's happening to it now?
Well, it's really tiny.
Yeah, yeah. Notice that it doesn't have the grip on you that it had when you were inside of it.
Right.
There's a whole new perspective on it. You're seeing it in a totally new light. And now notice, what I want you to notice now is that this anger feeling that you've been holding is because you had the expectation that this wouldn't happen. You were just assuming that life would go on the way it had been going on before. You had no anticipation of this, that it was going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. And so the anger is not actually, it actually is the reaction to the story you've been holding on to, that your expectation, which is natural to have, that life would just be continuing on in the way that you've had it before, that expectation was not met.
Right. It's not
Now,
fair.
it's not fair. Yeah, the story is it's not fair. Now, notice that this is a story that, even though there's a real basis for having this story, we want to challenge whether keeping this story in your awareness is actually in your best interest or not. And now that you're outside the field of the energy, you're going to notice that you have a little bit more of a sense of choice or empowerment about whether you allow this story to be in your awareness or not. So let's challenge it. Okay, first question is keeping this story in your mind changing the situation at all?
No.
Exactly. And is it improving your life or helping you to have the life that you want in any way to be keeping this story in your awareness?
No.
Right. So would you say it's a good investment or a good use of your life energy to continue to allow this story to be there?
No.
Not at all. Okay. Now, last question is, do you sense that you do have more of a choice about whether you keep the story or whether you let it go?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. It's basically, you've had it there. It's just been sort of like a bad habit of keeping the story coming back over and over again and keeping having that anger reaction present. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
the moment you decide that this is not worth it, that this is not a good use of your life energy, and the moment you decide to no longer allow this story to be there in your awareness, guess what? It's gone. And the energy and the story, any last part of the energy and the story, both collapse back into the nothingness out of which you created them in the first place. You get that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay? When the energy feels like it's all gone, you can open your eyes.
Okay, it feels like it's gone.
Terrific. Yeah. Terrific. The energy of this particular out technique energy associated with the anger, this is now completely resolved. Yes. Good job. So again, we're going to challenge this in a similar way to what we just did. I want you to, again, think about the whole situation. You know, in some sense, it wasn't fair, but, you know, what can you do? It is what it is, right?
It's one of my husband's favorite phrases.
Really?
It is what it is. Yep.
Oh, he was
it
so
is
right.
What it is.
He was so right. That's great. Yeah. Well, I wish I would have known him. Sounds like a good guy. Really good guy. That's great. So think about the whole situation and see if you have any remaining feeling of anger.
No, it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, completely accurate. Good job. Excellent job. And by the way, he would be proud of you because you're just being, you're being with it as it is. Good. Excellent. Okay. And you're smiling a lot more too. That's a good sign. Wonderful. So there's one remaining energy, which is the fear that I mentioned before. This is probably the least problematic one. You know, it's kind of like just the last. We want to not leave any sort of dust bunnies under the couch, so to speak.
Okay.
Want to clean it all up. So the being on your own now, and there's a little bit of fear of how you're going to manage because you relied on him.
Yeah.
And he was very comforting to you to have him in your life, I'm sure. So that little bit of fear is another one of these reactive energies. What it means is that you're projecting the possibility of some negative outcome onto the future. You may not even be aware of what it is. It might just be the kind of uncertainty of not knowing. Okay?
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, exactly. So uncertainty typically has a kind of bad reputation with people, and this is because when things happen that are not expected, that are painful, like having your husband die, when something unexpected, and you probably had other experiences earlier in your life, not as intense, but also where something negative happened that came out of the blue and was unexpected, and so develop this habit of fearing uncertainty. Like something else bad is going to happen. And I don't know what it is, but it could be bad, right?
Yeah.
So we want to get rid of this so that you can, just as your husband would say, so that you can just be present to what is. Right? All right. So when you think about this topic, can you feel the sense of a little bit of anxious feeling or fearful feeling?
Yeah.
Okay. If you close your eyes again, you'll notice that this also has one of these auras or clouds of energy that radiates out from the body and fills up the space around you and just sort of engulfs you. See if you can allow yourself to feel it. You feel it?
Yeah. It's funny. It
Okay.
looks completely different from the anger one.
Yeah, exactly. The quality is different, but the structure, the shape and structure are the same. Okay. Even though the flavor or texture or quality is different. So we're going to do exactly the same thing you just did with the anger, and that is we're going to go outside the energy field. And you don't even have to really travel there. You can just notice that somewhere out there, it's quiet. The reason you can notice that is that you're actually already there. You've just sort of forgotten that you're there. There's your awareness that's out there is the awareness you're using to have this whole experience. Okay, so you're already there. It means it's easy to contact it.
Yeah.
If you, yeah, okay, good. So notice the quietness, and then go a little bit deeper into the quietness again to get the distinction between the energy field and the quietness even more clear. Just by noticing the area of the quietness that's a little further away. Easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now, again, just like before, go really deep into the quietness, quite far away from the cloud of energy. And again, allow yourself to notice how simply vast and limitless the quietness is. No end to it. Have a sense of that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. So just hang out there for a little bit, just enjoy it. And as you look back at the energy cloud of this anxious, fearful feeling, not knowing what's going to happen, what's happening to that energy cloud now?
It's gone.
It's gone already.
It's
Wonderful.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. And now you can easily see that that energy was there because you had some story running about, oh, I don't know what's going to happen, something bad might happen, some form of a projection of a negative outcome onto the future, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So again, in order to have it not come back, we want to just question whether there's any benefit at all to keeping that story active in your awareness. Any value to keeping it and feeling anxious?
No.
Getting it?
No.
No, it's not serving your life in any way.
Yeah.
It's not a good use of your life energy. It actually drains it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And notice how, again, you feel sort of empowered, like more a choice about not just staying stuck in this not knowing, just bad habit of allowing this story and reaction to be there, but you're now in a position to just decide to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that when you're outside the energy cloud, but it's almost impossible to do it from inside. That's why we have to extract ourselves from the energy field first. Then we can see it in a whole new light. Then you can let it go. And the moment that actually it's already, the energy's gone, but when you let the story go, the energy of the story itself collapses back into the nothingness and then it's completely gone.
Yeah.
Okay. Good job, Joan. Excellent. Yeah, laughing and smiling is good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You haven't been doing much of that in the last 9 or 10 months, huh?
No. No. This feels good.
Yeah, excellent. That's really good. So again, we're going to do that same provocation test. Just think about the whole situation of your husband passing away, and just see if there's any pain, if there's any anger, if there's any fear. We just want to make sure we're doing a thorough, comprehensive job on this. Or for that matter, if there's anything else that we've kind of uncovered through clearing these major things. It's feeling pretty good now?
Yeah. It just feels very calm. It is
Excellent.
what it is.
Yeah, your husband would really be proud of you.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. A lot of people have the feeling that if they stop grieving, that somehow this is going to be an indication that they don't love the person anymore. And this is completely ridiculous, actually, because your husband wouldn't want you suffering.
Right.
And your love for him, actually, you probably now experience that you can feel the love for him, and that's mainly what you feel is just the love.
Mm-hmm.
This was the same way with me with my daughter. You read my post about my
Right.
experience.
Yes. Uh-huh.
When my daughter died, I mean, what a shock. It was such a total shock. And when the energy was all gone, which took me, I don't know, an hour, hour and a half or something, I did it immediately when I had heard, because I'd helped other people and I knew what to do, thank goodness. But again, when the energy was gone, it was the same for me. All I could feel was my love for her. That was it. All the pain, all the suffering was gone. So fantastic job. So there's something else that associated with the grieving that we need to find and resolve for Joan. No, this whole experience of the grief, we've completed everything we need to do so that Joan is free of this. Excellent. This is wonderful. Congratulations. Good job.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so incredibly welcome. It's lovely to see the smile on your face. A contrast to when we started.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do, Joan, is to check in with you in maybe a week or two, and
Okay.
we'll get on another call just for a few minutes, just to kind of see how you're doing,
Okay.
because we
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure that this is really, really established. It's really permanent. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll email you,
Okay.
or we can message on Facebook or something, and we'll
Yeah.
arrange a time for that sometime in about a week or two. You know, whatever feels comfortable. If in the
Okay.
if in the meantime you feel any discomfort or struggle with any aspect of this, just message me, and we can just get back online for a few minutes and take care of it.
Okay.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're so incredibly welcome.
Mm-hmm.
This is the beginning stage of learning to become emotionally competent. Because we live in a world where everybody's emotionally incompetent.
Mm-hmm.
And this is because of that conditioning that I mentioned at the beginning, where everybody learns to suppress their feelings or collapse into them being overwhelmed. These two styles of dealing with emotions are not effective. You still have the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you've learned today is the two essential techniques, which are the foundation of beginning to become emotionally competent. And I want you to know, you have a smartphone, right? You've got a
Yeah.
smartphone.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I want you to know that we have an app. It's in both Apple and Android platforms. It's an
Okay.
app called Awaken Your Inner Greatness. It's the only
Okay.
app by that, Awaken Your Inner Greatness. And it has in it a very simple swiping interface. When you open it up and you have one of the techniques on the screen, you just swipe to the right, any place on the screen with your fingers. So you can keep your eyes closed and keep doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you the audio instructions, just like I did today, of guiding you basically through the different stages of the technique. So I
Okay.
highly recommend you download that, put it in your phone, and if you feel caught in your emotions for any other reason, okay, and
Mm-hmm.
life goes on, and so there are going to be other stress factors and other things that are going to happen where you'll have emotional reactions, right? So what we want
Right.
to do is become masterful at handling the emotions. By the way, one of my books is called Emotional Mastery.
Okay.
I've written 14 books actually, all about this stuff. Okay, so I highly recommend you download the app so that when you need it, because I may not be accessible, but
Yeah.
when you need it, you can just open the app and you'll have a sense of whether that's that inner constricted
Mm-hmm.
feeling and use the in technique, or if it's that outer cloud-like energy, then use the out technique. And there are
Okay.
actually 8 pure awareness techniques in all. 5 of them are in the app. There's one called quietness, one called locate for when you're having trouble finding energy in the body, and then there's in and out. There's another one called wholeness that I think you'll really love. It's like it takes the experience of the quietness and expands it just huge, like out beyond
Mm-hmm.
the whole universe. Anyway, you can try them out. I think you'll
Okay.
like that. And this will be a great resource for you to have as a kind of backup to help you if any kind of problem with, if you have any kind of problem with any emotion that comes up as you're going along now through your life. Okay?
Okay.
Fantastic.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So welcome. You're so welcome, and thank you so much for volunteering. And I'll be in touch in a week or two.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks.
Fantastic. All the
Yeah.
best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.